insist I must have, because the phone was hung up properly when she left for work. One day, I got home a little early. Now, I need to pause and tell you about the layout of our apartment. From the front door, I looked directly into the living room, dining room, the door to the kitchen, and the short halfway that led to my hallway that led to my parents' bedroom and my bedroom. There was no other door. The windows were old-fashioned, narrow casement windows with screens, and we were on the third floor. Anyway, as soon as I walked in the door, I clearly heard 2 footsteps in my parents' bedroom. I dropped my school bag and foolishly ran to the bedroom. It wasn't far and only took a few seconds. I got to the bedroom and no one was there. However, I immediately noticed that the receiver of the phone on my mother's bedside table was on the floor. It was placed so that the cord to the base was stretched out as far as it could go. I later tried to replicate the placement by shaking the table, tipping the phone, etc. I could never get the receiver off the base. When I finally resorted to knocking it off with a finger, it would fall on the table or next to it. The only way I could replicate the placement of the receiver where I found it was to carefully stretch the cord, place it, and hold it for a few moments. It could not have gotten to that spot by accident. When I found the phone, I hung it up and it immediately rang. I answered it and it was my dad. He asked what was wrong. I asked him why he asked. He said he had a cold, apparently just before I got home, and someone, he thought it was me, answered the phone but never said anything. He finally hung up and had been trying to call back, and only got through after I hung up the phone. I've never figured out what happened. I definitely heard footsteps, and I'm just as certain there was no one there. No one went by me. The windows in the bedroom were not disturbed, and my parents had too much stuff under the bed and in the closet for anyone bigger than an infant to hide person, I'd only ever see him on the cameras. It used to scare the F out of me. I ended up recording the CCTV and showed the security supervisor, which led to HR questioning him about sneaking into the office after dark. Turned out, behind some filing cabinets in his office, there was this little hatch door which led to this vertical passageway with a ladder that was connected to the basement. The guy got divorced the month before and lost the house, and he was living in that tiny passageway with a sleeping bag. That's just sad. That's kind of sad. Although that would be really creepy if you, like, when you didn't know what was happening. Okay. Next one. I have seen some pretty wild stuff in my life, but most of it is explainable. The one event that comes to mind was witnessed by my dad, brother, and myself, and it's a two-part encounter, but I still consider it one event. This is a bit long, but I feel like it might be worth the read. It was around 1998. My family and I had just moved into an old clapboard house on the edge of town. It had a huge backyard with a 6-foot wooden privacy fence on one side and a metal chain link fence about 4.5 feet high around the other 3 sides of the yard. Neighbors on one side, the privacy fence side, a small grass alley that ran behind the back with a street light, and then another yard, etc. Our bedroom was an old converted sunroom on the back of the house that faces the backyard. It had floor-to-ceiling windows all along the back wall looking into the backyard. We didn't have many options as to where to place our beds, so my headboard was against the windows and my brother's bed was about 8 feet away, with his headboard against the opposite wall with the foot of the bed facing the windows. One night we were up pretty late. I was in my bed and he was in his, just talking about random things when suddenly he got quiet. I figured he fell asleep, but then I heard him whispering in a shaky breath. So I was like, what? And I hear him whisper again. So again, I'm like, speak up, I can't hear you. And he goes, don't move and be quiet. In a forced whisper, but I think he's messing with me. And like, oh, why? And I'm looking at him, and mind you, my head is to the windows and he's pointing into the backyard behind my bed. So I quickly sit up and turn around and see this huge dog head staring almost nose to glass through the window right behind my bed. I'm almost nose to nose with this thing, just a single pane of glass and about 10 inches of empty air separate me from this thing. Now when I say I screamed, I mean I screamed. Not my proudest moment, but hey, I was like 10 years old. Anyways, the thing quickly ducked under the window and ran to the side of the yard and jumped the 4.5-foot chain link fence and bolted off into the darkness. My dad came running into the room with our mum right on his heels. We were able to get out that something was looking through our window. So Dad ran back to his room and grabbed his shotgun, then headed out the side door of the house and into the backyard. I'm guessing this is America because people don't just go and grab their shotgun when they see something. Anyway, unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know, he didn't find anything. Wrote it off as I had a nightmare and my brother wouldn't admit to seeing anything. So I took the blame and was told to quit messing around, go back to bed, the typical parent response, etc. Well, later that night, maybe an hour or so after I begged my parents to let me sleep in the living room because leaving the house wasn't an option and still being refused, I was made to sleep in my room. So again, my brother and I are in our room with these floor-to-ceiling windows and we are just completely rattled. First of all, why do they not have curtains? If there's runs across the full length of the backyard, jumps the back chain link fence. It cleared the fence, the alleyway, and then landed in the back neighbor's yard. This is easily a 15 to 20 foot jump minimum clearing the fence like it was nothing and was gone at a dead run up beside that house and off into the darkness on the other side. My dad comes tearing around the side of the house with his shotgun in hand and makes a mad dash for the side door, slams it shut behind him. He is screaming and hollering, "We've got to go." We pack up and head to our hotel that night. My mom absolutely refused to believe we saw what we said we saw, and we only lived there for about 6 months. It rattled my dad so much he didn't even want to come back. He told my mom that we were just going to move that next day, but she wouldn't allow it. After about 6 months, she conceded and we moved. Mind you, this is in the coastal plains region of Texas. We have no large wild canines here. Yeah, I thought it was America. We have stray dogs and coyotes, but nothing that would even remotely touch on how big this thing was. My dad swears he shot that thing with a slug from about 15 feet away with his 12-gauge shotgun right underneath its left arm, hitting it in the ribs where its vital organs are, and nothing, it just ran off. He said the thing that freaked him out the most was that when he saw the thing jump the fence, it walked towards our window and crouched but still on its hind legs. It wasn't walking on all fours, and then when it got to our window, it stood up straight up. And he could tell that while it looked like a dog, its body was shaped wrong. He said it looked like a really stocky person wearing a dog suit, but he could tell it wasn't a suit. Also, that when it was walking in circles, sniffing the ground before coming into our yard the second time, it wasn't actually sniffing the ground like for a scent. It was staring at our window with its face to the ground, acting like it was sniffing the ground, almost as if it was playing a part to see if anyone would notice it. He said he's had dogs his whole life and everything about what it was doing was wrong. A while later, I asked my dad why he was in the backyard if he thought I was having a nightmare, and he told me my brother is the one that gave it away. He said with how panicked I looked that my brother was almost white as a sheet and wouldn't take his eyes off the window. He said your brother has never looked so scared and never been one with just making stuff up. So after going back to his room with my mom as he was laying there thinking about it, he decided that if my brother was as white as he was, then we had to have seen something. So he grabbed his gun in case he had to scare some creeper out of our yard and figured he was going to go through the garage and out by the far side of the house and sneak to the corner to see if someone was peeking in our windows or if someone was actually messing with us. He never actually thought we saw a huge dog-looking thing, just that maybe with it being dark outside and us being kids with overactive imaginations, maybe we just mistook someone as something. But when he saw that thing come up the side fence and with the street light in the back alley lighting up the backyard, he saw it and it freaked him out. He was going to creep back inside until it went up to our window, and he said as it stood up, he just got this instant feeling of dread, like something was going to happen to us. There's someone in the comments saying that is Dog Man. There is a famous didn't say anything. The next morning, I see her and ask her why she rushed out of the room in the middle of the night. She then tells me she woke up in the middle of the night and saw my boyfriend, quoted, sitting at my desk and asked him why he was up. She then saw my boyfriend sleeping next to me. She believed in ghost stuff, so she freaked and left. It really freaked me out because we hadn't mentioned the look-alike that my boyfriend saw to her, and it sounded like she saw the same figure. Living in RI made me see some weird stuff. I'm not sure what RI is, I'm guessing that's a state or something, but that sounds really creepy. Like, imagine you're just laying in your bed and then you see yourself, like, walking past. That does sound pretty creepy. Next, the basement in my dad's house is finished, except for the storage room, which is really dark and creepy and is around the corner from the main room of the basement. There's an elliptical down there, and when standing on the elliptical, if you look over your shoulder, you can see half of the door to the storage room. I was working out on said elliptical and I felt like someone was standing behind me, so I looked over my shoulder, and in that half doorway, a dark figure with light grey eyes was standing there looking at me. I was house sitting, so I knew there wasn't anyone else home. I slowly got off the elliptical and went into the bathroom to hide. Then a while later, decided to be bold and rush past the storage room and back upstairs. Not the first time I had seen that grey-eyed figure either. Wait, I don't get it. There was a dark figure with like grey eyes. I feel like that could be like, I don't know, maybe just an imagination thing. Like when I was young, I thought I saw a reindeer on Christmas Eve, but obviously there was no reindeer in my room. When I woke up in the morning, they were just like plastic bags that could be seen as reindeers. My very first job was as a radio DJ at a small hometown radio station in the mid-1990s. This was a tiny building out in the middle of a field with a 500-foot antenna out back and a single road from the main road to the front door. The transmitter was right behind my studio, behind sound dampening glass, and had a light bulb that was always on. The station was so small that you could see the light bulb in the transmitter room all the way from the driveway/roadway. There were only two doors, the front door and the back door in the transmitter room. That door didn't even have a handle on the outside, and it was always locked from the inside. It's impossible to enter that door from the outside. I worked the evening shift from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. After my shift, we actually went off the air for the night. I was always the last person there, so after I went off the air, I had to book commercials for the first hour or two of the morning show, clean dishes, finish up some production work, etc. After working there for a year or so, I had racked up a couple of weird experiences. Shadows scurrying about at the corner of my vision, lights turning on and off. One evening, after getting in and taking over the board, I was just sitting there preparing myself mentally for the next 5 hours. I looked up at the studio doors towards the front door, and I saw the perfect shadow shape of a man who was probably 6 foot tall. It was there, and then not. I went to my boss, who was not a nice person on her nicest days, and said, "So, I have a weird question." She sighed and looked at me, expecting who knows what. "Have you ever felt like someone was here who wasn't?" My boss yelled across the building for someone to come into her office. When that person arrived, she tilted her head at me. "He's seen Jimmy." Supposedly, everyone had seen Jimmy, the original owner of the radio station. He popped in from time to time. "He won't hurt you, he's just checking in on the station." So also lived there at the station. It didn't have a name and it was about shin high. This one always gave me a really bad feeling. It was the one who had died beside me, its shadow just in the corner of my eye. I always knew it was there just because I would feel downright freaked out. One night in particular was the scariest I've ever been. Here it is 30-ish or so years later, and I still can't explain it. As soon as everyone left the building for the night, I got that feeling like it was there. I just turned on all the lights, turned the music up, and tried to ignore it. The longer the night went on though, the worse it got. Lights were flashing everywhere. A dot matrix printer in the sales office started going on its own. Something that never happened, and that office was locked. Then ceiling tiles started moving up as if someone hit them with a broom handle. They started closest to me from my studio down the hall and ended at the front door, which was locked. And then the front door opened. A locked door opened. I went down the hall to close and relock it. When I did, I saw through the door window that there was a coffee cup and a cigar on the front stoop. There was no reason for them to be there. On my way back to the studio, I got a big burst of cigar smell, like an invisible smoke cloud, right in my face. I knew my usual duties were required, but I didn't care at this point. I went off the air, grabbed my keys, and noped right the F out of there. I ran to my car, backed up, and looked through the front door. A figure was standing inside, silhouetted in front of the transmitter light. I peeled out and went straight home. Now, all of that is screwy, but it's not the most unexplainable thing. Is it 100% impossible someone didn't somehow sneak in and play a very elaborate prank on me? No. There's a slight, minuscule chance someone did, but to this day I don't know how. It was an old, tiny building, but I still hold the possibility that it could have been a prank. I got home and told my mom this whole story. My heart was still pounding. She was all, well, it's bedtime. So I go to my bedroom and dial up a BBS to write someone what had happened to me. I don't know what a BBS is. As I was typing up the story, my modem speaker turned on. If you are old enough to remember dial-up modems, you know the speaker doesn't just turn on once the connection is made. They wouldn't even turn back on if someone in the house picked up the phone. You just get a lot of bad data on the screen and your modem would disconnect. The speaker turns on and a voice comes from the speaker mixed with the static of the data connection. It screeched, "Help me." The speaker then turned off and nothing else changed on my screen. That speaker turning on and the voice coming out is solidified in my brain. I remember the screech like it was yesterday. I have no explanation for it. My mom was the only other person in the house and she wouldn't have done something like that. She couldn't have done something like that. It was the scariest night of my life. I am as skeptical as you can be about anything ghost or UFO related, but that night is beyond my ability to explain. As a kind of a footnote to all of this, I go back to that station every now and then when I go home to visit. I still know some people who work there. Jimmy is still active and well known by the staff. But the little scary one, no one else has reported seeing him. Well, yeah, that's pretty scary. Also, he's seen so much stuff, but he doesn't believe in like ghost stuff. That is interesting. There seems to be a lot of posts on here that are about technology things. Yeah. also dreaming, so we talk about stuff like that a lot. And he died right before he would have turned 20. He said he was riding a skateboard wearing all black when the car hit him and could see everyone at his funeral. He even said his crush was at his funeral.